This is Healing at Soul Level with your host, Shawna Williams. Shawna is here to provide various forms of healing that are non-invasive, that promote relaxation and aid the body in naturally healing itself by using ancient healing techniques that have been around for centuries. So please welcome the host of Healing at Soul Level, Shawna Williams.
Good morning and welcome to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Jennifer Valdez. She is an empath and a spiritual healer. She's able to connect quickly to address mental, physical, and spiritual blockages. Jennifer uses multiple techniques to help release negative energy and then infuses with healing love, but she specializes in energy cleansing. As an empath, she has a gift for connecting with individuals quickly and helping them open up and cleanse their energies. I'd like to welcome Jennifer to the show. Jennifer, how are you?
Hi. Good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. So
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
I'm so glad you agreed to be on the show. Tell me a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this field of work.
Okay. My name is Jennifer Valdez. I'm a Texas girl. I was born in Dallas and raised in a small town called Ennis, which is 30 miles south of Dallas. And I'm third-generation American, so I have Hispanic heritage. But I grew up in a little small town. Most of my life to a single parent with my mom. And so growing up, I always felt a little bit like the weird kid, had a little strange experiences and feelings and stuff like that. And so I've kind of had different gifts throughout my life. I mean, when I started as a kid, I was always having dreams about the future and all of these really intuitive feelings about people and events and things going on in my life. And so that's probably the basis of how I kind of got started on this journey. To be honest, it was a little bit of a, it was difficult at times growing up with this gift and really not knowing what it was. And so as a young adult, I started kind of on this path to try to figure out basically what was wrong with me at the time, what I thought was wrong with me. And so I started looking into a lot of different things, reading a lot of stuff. That's really how it started mostly, was just trying to help myself. And then over the years, the word empath kind of started showing up multiple times. And it really was the only thing that was really resonating with me of like what it was like for me to live in this world. And so I really started to embrace that. And once I did, it seemed like everything started opening up and other modalities and stuff like that started really presenting themselves, which has kind of led me to a place now where I use this double-edged sword type of gift really to help others, which in turn is often helping myself get through things. So,
Yeah, I get that. A lot of people feel like, I use the term unicorn, felt like I was a unicorn. Nobody else was like me, right? Is that how you felt?
Yeah. Yes, alone, yes.
Yeah. So I get that.
Yes, being an empath is definitely, it was nice to have a term for it because, to be honest with you, I mean, I think the best thing for you and for the audience today is just to be honest about what it's really like. And for many, many years, it really did feel like I was crazy. It felt like I was cursed. It felt lonely. No one understood you, but you understood everyone else.
Okay, did you read my bio?
Right?
Okay, go ahead.
No, and it's funny. I meet other people often they're really interested about learning because they feel that maybe they might be empaths too. And so when we start talking about it, there's no other way to talk about it than to be completely honest about what it was like. And, for a long time, it was emotional for me, feeling other people's emotions, almost to the point of where when I was a kid, I would take them on. So someone's crying, I'm crying. They're laughing, I'm laughing. I had no control, and people were taking me on these emotional rides and roller coasters from person to person to person to person. So it's like being bombarded with energy in your face all day long, and never knowing what's your own. And so that can be, as a kid especially, it's very frightening. Then being a teenager, oh my gosh, everyone's having all of these, emotional days and, and just feeling everything so intensely. And I'm feeling everyone else's stuff, plus my own things of having to go through with my own family problems and things like that. And so it really can be overwhelming, I guess is the best way to put it. And so
exhausting.
It is exhausting. Yes, it can be, definitely. And I spent, that's why I was so interested in talking with you today, because if I can save anybody one day from having to continue on feeling that way, or feeling alone, or feeling like there's no other way to live with this gift, that sometimes, like I said, feels like a curse. If I can save anybody any time, like, I'm so happy, because I know what that feels like, to just feel like you don't own yourself, and that you're just being driven by things that you don't understand, or by other people that you come into contact with. And it can also, I think for a lot of people, I've always been a pretty, strong-willed girl, I guess is the best way to put it. But I know other empaths that it's driven them to not have a true sense of identity, that they cling on to other people's identities quickly. And it's not necessarily because that's what that's what's in their heart, but just because it is easier that way. So say they start dating someone, and it's easier to take on their likes and, their kind of ways of life, and it leaves you feeling unfulfilled, I guess. But that is, of course, also everyone's personal journeys that they have to go on. So really learning about if you really are an empath, and how to accept it and how to use it in a positive light is the best way to free yourself, I believe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because they do need to understand that it's a gift. I mean, you just haven't learned how to fully use your gift. And once you learn that, I mean, it's a wonderful thing. You have to learn that, like you said, because I remember feeling the same way that you said, feeling like, am I nuts? I mean, why is it, why am I crying? I'm perfectly fine, but now I'm just blubbering. I don't understand this.
Yes. I know. I thought that for such a long time, that, there must be something really, really wrong with me, and I'll be honest. I mean, there was a time in my life where a lot of things had kind of happened. And so, I would say this is probably over a decade ago, and things just got really too much. I mean, I just, had a lot of losses in my life, and I was feeling it. So every time something like that would happen, if someone passed away, it was devastating to me. Yeah. And so there were multiple ones in a row, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I saw a doctor, to try to help. And so then when we started talking and stuff and started working through everything, I was like, I must be really crazy, right? I mean, go ahead and, put them out there, start laying out all of the, the issues that I have. And she was like, no, I mean, yeah, I had a few things that we needed to work on and deal with and stuff. But she was very encouraging because I was honest with her about what it was like for me. And she was so encouraging about researching other things and about that it could be something God-given or from the universe or metaphysical. I was lucky in that way, that it wasn't like she wanted to medicate me and call it a day. And so I trusted my instincts. Finding her and trusting her, and so it was really a gift to me. And to be honest, I feel like being an empath, and the only way to be a functioning empath is to get to know yourself, so that way you can differentiate yourself between your feelings and emotions in other people. But I'm sure we'll get more into that a little bit later, how to do that. And because it's a big, for me it was, I don't know if it was for you, but I mean, for me it was, so know the difference between me and other people.
Oh, yeah. I still, every once in a while, have to think about that myself. It'll be good whenever we talk about that. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. So please stay tuned. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. And I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Today we're talking about being an empath with with my guest, Jennifer Valdez. She was just telling us how she got into this line of work, but I'd like to know how someone can find out or figure out whether or not they're an empath.
Okay. So there's a few different things I think that kind of lead people into thinking that they possibly could be an empath. To have empathy for someone, it is a little bit different being an empath. Well, probably a lot different. But having empathy for someone is just kind of putting yourself, imagining what it's like to be in their situation, and then having, feels for that, right? But for being an empath, it's actually you are feeling their emotions and for me personally, and not all empaths, but feeling your physical pain. So
I do.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
And I think that's one for me that like I didn't really realize I was doing until probably in the recent years, but it was probably happening majority of my life. But being an empath, emotions, your own emotions, but mostly emotions of others affect you in this profound way. So if we were watching the news and you go from story to story, you are feeling whatever emotions are being prompted at the time, and you will go back and forth and back and forth. So say a dog gets run over, that becomes all of a sudden the feeling, the sadness of like, oh, that poor dog, all of a sudden becomes just so heavy on you. Or someone's talking about their lost dog and you're feeling it, and you're maybe crying and you don't even know this dog. You don't understand why it's affecting you so badly. Or someone wins a lottery and they're so excited, and then you're feeling so jubilant, and it's almost like you're jumping out of your skin. It's feeling, being able to almost step into someone's body and feel whatever emotion they're having to an extreme. So that's kind of the first thing. A lot of times people tell me that they just they feel they don't have control over their emotions. And I'd have to agree that was something that I felt growing up as well. So the other is also being able to feel people's pain. So it's not just feeling the emotional pain, so like mimicking their emotions, but it also can be physical pain, because I believe that a lot of times our emotions get trapped in our bodies and cause different illnesses, or just make us feel yucky in general. And we can often physically feel what they're feeling. So sometimes if I'm in front of someone and we'll be talking, and then I'll stop them and say, oh, is your right shoulder hurting? And usually they tell me yes. And I'm physically feeling that pain, the same pain that they're feeling, or their back's hurting. I can feel it in my back. So we literally, it's like becoming one with the person. And so, but I would say that if you haven't really looked into it too much yet, or don't recognize yourself as an empath just yet, those are kind of the first precursors of, feeling like you know exactly what someone's feeling or exactly what they're going through. There's also, you may have certain intense intuition about situations or people. That's also part of it. I don't know if it is for you too, Shawna, but for me it is. I meet people and I feel like I know their life story immediately. I know who they are to their core. And that's one of the beautiful things about it. It kind of cuts down a little bit on the get to know you time, at least on my side.
Not exactly. On that part, I don't know people when I first talk to them, but I can walk into a room and decide whether or not that room is safe, or whether there's something going on. Somebody could have had an argument, but it's all clear. But when I walk in, I can still feel the thickness or heaviness of the argument in the room. So that's how mine goes.
Yes, and then that's the residual energy of that emotion. And so and that's why you're picking up on all of that. I probably in my lifetime have just always been, because of my upbringing, been skeptical of people. So that's probably why mine ended up presenting itself that way of Jen, for survival reasons, Jennifer has to figure it out quickly who these people are,
Right.
what they want, and that kind of thing. So that's probably why it pivoted that way for me a little bit. So there's the feeling of people's energies, feeling this really nagging intuitive part of you. Also too, I find a lot of empaths find themselves in jobs or lifestyles where maybe they're helpers in some way, they're nurses or teachers. They feel so inclined to help others. Not saying that if you don't have that occupation, you're not an empath, but you do feel really drawn to make a difference in this world. I think there's this nagging.
Or in my case, it was so overwhelming that I actually chose jobs where I wasn't around people. I avoided people because it was too draining and too upsetting. So I would take warehouse jobs or office jobs where I could just sit in a corner and stay away from people. So
that is so true. I've done that many a times. I'll be like, can I just sit in the back and with a computer and not have to talk to anybody? That is very, very true. But I think at the soul level, and I think with the work that you're doing now and the work that I'm doing now, you can only avoid it for so long. Of finding your truth, and whether that is to really use your gift to quote unquote help people or not, it will push you to find out what that is, what this gift is here for, because it is one. And so, but you're exactly right. I've done that so many times. A lot of empaths can find themselves introverts. For that reason, it's hard for them to be out at concerts, bars, even just in a classroom. That can be overwhelming, feeling the emotion of everyone there. And so I would say that those are some of the first things that people that I personally, and then also the other empaths that I've come across, that they have explained to me, I think were the first things that they felt was just overwhelming emotion, or not liking to be around a lot of crowds because not liking the feelings that they were personally physically getting. So
okay, yeah, I understand that as well. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk more about being an empath. Hello and welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. We've been talking about how it's like to be an empath with Jennifer Valdez. And so we're going to talk about how someone would work with these gifts, what the positives and the negatives are of this gift and how they can, figure out what to do if they think that they're an empath. So what would you think that someone should be able to do with this, Jennifer?
Well, there's really lots of directions that this can take you in. It can take you into the world of healing, something like what you and I do, or into the more conventional forms of healing, doctor or nurse or caretaker and teacher, all kinds of wonderful vocations that this gift will really actually help you perform your job in this way that is so profound. But you can use that in the business world, going in and knowing what people want. I know that there's a lot of empaths that are starting to be able to pivot their gift into helping marketing companies, advertising companies, things like that, where they do really feel connected with people, and so they're helping them, connect with their audience in a quicker, easier way. I'm also an artist and entertainer, so I use my gift that way as well, to connect with my audience. I've danced for a long time. I have a very varied background, and so that's really interesting, is being able to take people on my journey. So I'd like to talk a little bit about kind of the pros and cons to being an empath, and kind of how you could use this in your daily life.
Okay.
So we've talked a lot about, or I have talked a lot about the cons, and so I don't want everybody just to get freaked out about it at all. But I mean, I think those are the hard truths about what it was like, especially learning what it is to be an empath, and then kind of finding your way to where you can deal with that gift. So some of the negatives definitely are at times having to always reevaluate, is this my emotion? Is it someone else's emotion? The highs and the lows of that sometimes can, if you're not really on it, it can, before you know it, you can find yourself in a low. Also, too, which I don't think this is a negative, but it can be a negative for some people. I'm not a sideline kind of person. I can't be. So I can't just watch things happen in the world and just be like, oh, well, it's not my problem.
Right.
So that can be daunting because sometimes you want to help so many different ways, and it's just not possible. So that can feel like a negative sometimes too, that the world can feel a little overwhelming and stuff. But on the positive side, there's so many ways as an empath that you actually can use those feelings to make a positive impact. So say, for example, that of feeling like, oh, gosh, there's nothing that I can do. Being an empath, you do, for me, I don't know if it's like this for you, Shawna, but, I mean, I do have a persuasive kind of side to me.
Oh, yeah.
So
I got you on my show, didn't I?
Yeah, exactly. So when I'm talking to people, I'm able to connect with them pretty quickly. So to say I just want them to do something as simple as choose to go eat spaghetti tonight, and they're really set on going to eat Chinese food. And we sit there and, and we talk and stuff, and I will kind of get into like, why it is that they're wanting to eat that, and I'm able to kind of pivot them back around to like choosing what I want. And so I know that sounds so selfish, but it is a small kind of idea of what one of the things that you can do. And yes, you have to balance that because you want to use this for good, but you do get a few little fun party tricks like that of where you can all of a sudden people are really wanting that too. So
people have to remember that there is karma in everything that we do. So definitely, use it for good because your karma will come back.
Absolutely. But on the positives, I mean, I think for me, I feel like I believe that there's a difference between what your passions in life are and what your callings are. And for me, I have a lot of different passions. Like I have a degree in philosophy. I'm an artist, a dancer, an actor, all these different things, a teacher. I do all these things and I feel passionately about them, and some of them are my passions. But being an empath has become my calling. I believe it's why I was put on this earth. And there was always something nagging at me saying, Jen, you're here for something more. You're supposed to do something more. There's got to be something more. And this has really been the thing that even with all the other modalities that are presenting themselves, like I am finding that it all goes back to being an empath. And so I'm able to help others, able to heal others, able to fulfill what I believe is my life's mission. And I think, and it makes me emotional thinking about it right now, but that is one of the most beautiful things about this gift, that even though I've laid out some really negative things at first in my life that I had to deal with being an empath, it's almost like someone lifted up the shade and the light has just shone in on myself and my soul and who I am. So being an empath has really kind of led me down that road of figuring out who I am and what I'm here for and what I want to do. And there definitely is a multitude of things that you could do career-wise with this. On a personal level, going back to like what makes people wonder if they're an empath, I would find that people would sit down with me. I'd be at a restaurant. They'd sit down and start telling me their life story or start telling me about issues that they're having, and I didn't know them at all. And then I was able to give them, a little advice or a little encouragement, a little bit of help. And that's really how it started. And just feeling like, oh gosh, everybody always wants to, tell me everything. And now I know that comes with a a great responsibility, and I feel very blessed that people feel comfortable of trusting me and doing that. But that's everything, I guess. Every negative we have laid out can be seen as a positive.
Yeah,
I feel like
I wanted to add on to your story about the people coming and talking with you, because you felt compelled to give them a little advice. I just wanted the listeners to also know that sometimes, which is in my case, when people would come and talk to me, I was just listen. I was like their sacred space for them to talk, and that was all they needed, and they would feel better.
Yeah.
So both ways works, just so that they understand on that
and
part.
I think that I think people are being drawn to the energy that they're supposed to be at. So I think that when people presented themselves, when they presented themselves in front of me, I think they were being drawn to that, and I knew that they would need something back. But trust me, there are times where I don't intercede. I may cross paths with someone, and there may be something in me that knows that I might be able to help them, but there's something that's holding me back, and I definitely don't force it.
Okay. Well, let me take a quick break right now, and then we'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shawna Williams. We have been talking about being an empath with Jennifer Valdez, and we want to talk about some self-care. How can you protect yourself? What are boundaries, and how to do this whenever you believe that you may be an empath?
Yes. So this is one of my favorite things to talk about because when I have people that approach me or come to me asking for help on whether they are an empath or they want mentorship, being an empath, this is one of the first things that we talk about once we have decided that, yes, you're possibly an empath. And self-care and protection are high on the list. One, we said earlier about getting to know yourself. The best way to be able to tell if an emotion is yours or not is to kind of be very present in what's going on in your life with all of your family and friends, your own life choices, decisions, paths, that kind of thing. And so it's a constant. For me, it is a constant. I'm on a constant journey as well. So as my life begins to unfold, I'm constantly taking a lot of energy, putting a lot of energy into also where I am and things, because I'm like you said earlier about you said about, karma comes back, but it also is a yin and yang. So it's so important for me to take care of myself so that I can be able to help others. But what happens is that we will absorb the energies of others. So when we talked about maybe just like stepping into someone's body, there's an imprint. It's almost like if I was to step onto the beach, I'm going to get covered in sand. And so when I leave the beach, if I don't do anything to wash that off, I'm just going to be carrying around that sand. And in this case, that sand is emotion, or it's a problem that someone else was dealing with. And so as we do that during the day, so think about that during the day, and everyone's covered with this different colored sand. All day long, I'm talking to people and touching people and whatever else it is that I do in my daily life, and I'm just getting covered and bombarded with all of this. And so I have to do something to help cleanse myself of that, so that I won't be carrying their things around all the time. So some really simple things that you can do is, of course, if you're not in any type of meditation or anything, that's okay. Some of these little things can help you get into a kind of cleansing state. One of the things I love to tell people to do, because a lot of people do it every day or every other day, is that when you are showering or bathing, to use the water during that to cleanse yourself. And so it's a nice reference for our mind to take the literal cleansing of our body with the emotional and spiritual cleansing as well. So I like to visualize myself, think about all that colored sand. I like to visualize myself letting all of that go down and drain and just be drained away. And as I get clean, I'm allowing those energies to be gone. So especially if you have you are a teacher or a nurse or something like that, where you're coming into physical therapy, customer service, where you're coming into contact with so many people throughout the day, you're just getting bombarded with their energy all day long, and you have to do something to cleanse yourself. So even if you're at work, something as simple as going into the bathroom and washing your hands and being mindful of that, of like letting go of that energy and letting it know that that energy will, you're not going to harm anything by letting that go, because the earth and the universe will recycle that into a more positive energy. And to be honest with you, sometimes people that are super excited can be just as daunting and overwhelming to you as someone who's sad. So, so really, it's about like letting those things go, and you have to do it. I would prefer someone did it at least once a day. You just kind of will start to learn yourself of how much you need it. Stepping outside is a wonderful thing. Being close to nature, taking your shoes off, grounding yourself into grass or dirt. Yes, it's beautiful. You're allowing that energy to seep out of your body and to return to the earth, and the earth will push back the positive cleansing energy into you. It's really lovely. It's one of the things. I rarely wear shoes if I can get away with it, because I love to be able to feel the ground and the earth. So those are some simple things that people can do. And of course, there are some other things that take a little more time. Things that, journaling helps. There's a lot of other little things that you can do throughout your daily life, but you have to, it's that whole thing that we've all heard, that if you're in a plane and, and the oxygen mask falls down, you have to put yours on before you can, put on your, the person sitting next
someone
to you.
else beside
and it's
you.
Definitely that. Yeah. You have to. And
I have two things that I learned to do that help me out, that might help some of our listeners. For one thing is like, when you're sitting still somewhere or you're happy and then all of a sudden, boom, you're sad, you feel like crying. You need to question your feelings, ask, are these my feelings? And for me, once I question it, they go away, because I've already, it's like, I caught you. You tried to sneak in. I caught you. And another one. Yeah. And another one is, I think I've already talked about that, the sudden feelings. So if I'm sad and all of a sudden I'm happy, I mean, for me, that's a good thing, but still, that's not really my energy. I'm stealing it from someone else, or I'm not really stealing it, but I'm picking up on it. So
absolutely. No,
and that can happen.
Absolutely.
That can happen long distance as well. I've had that happen with family members that were in different states. I'd have to call them up because I could tell something was wrong. So,
yes, that connection can definitely travel lots of different. And I think that was a good point you bring up, because I like to think of myself as like, I'm working personally towards staying on this kind of steady kind of line. And so there are peaks and valleys throughout my day. But the ones that become extreme, like a really high or a really low are the ones that like they set off an alarm to me to go, okay, what is that? And like you said, I do the same exact thing. What am I feeling? Whose is this? Does this belong to me? And the more you get into that routine, the easier it becomes to understand yourself, understand others, and if you can, quote unquote, control it. I think that that's kind of how you start to do it. And the controlling, let me explain that a little bit. You're never going to fully control it. For me, I believe it's a gift that comes through me. So it's not really, I don't own it. And so I'm not ever trying to control it, but I am trying to learn how I can open and close the valve more when I want to. So if I'm sitting with someone in a session, I open the valve enough to where I can really be effective with them. But walking through my daily life, I shut it down, pretty far. So that way, when I want to go to the grocery store, I'm not just crying the whole time picking out oranges. So, I start to learn how to control that, But I also do one thing, if I have time to tell you, to protect myself. Is that probably many of your listeners may already do this, is surround themselves with a little bit of a protective light, or they may see it as a protective bubble through their day. I personally have, because being an empath, it becomes a little bit different for me, at least the way that I see it, is that part of how I know when I'm coming into contact with people, if I'm meant to
You
help
know
them
what?
or not. I do have to.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I need to cut you off on this part real quick just so I can take a quick break and we can come back and finish up with your story. Welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams, and we're broadcasting live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. When we left off, Jennifer Valdez was talking about boundaries, how you can keep boundaries for yourself as being an empath. Go ahead and finish up.
Yes. So, thank you. So just real quick, as an empath, you do have a tendency to want to kind of just block off other people's emotions, finding yourself alone a lot, or finding, like we talked about earlier, wanting a job where we're not having to come into contact with people. But that can really kind of begin to sever off relationships with others, with yourself, and the world in general, and the earth sometimes too. So what we want to do is rethink that idea of putting up a wall or putting up a bubble around ourselves. And I like to think of it as a permeable bubble and one that filters. So for me, I surround myself with this really thin kind of like elastic film around myself of sorts. And what it does is when energy comes towards me, I'm able to filter in what I want to accept. And the other stuff, it just kind of like can fall and slide off the outside of my little bubble, or it can just get stuck in the filters. And that's whenever I do my cleansing, I'm able to get rid of all of that. But it also allows me to project out. So we can't just think about all the things that we're being bombarded with on a daily basis, but we have to also think about the things that we want to get out. And so when we shut off the world, we're also shutting off ourselves and the good that we may be doing. And so I do a cleansing of the inside of me, things that I ingest, like the emotions that I'm taking in. I do a little visualization cleansing there, and then I do the outside cleansing of all those things that energies I'm picking up throughout the day. And so it helps the energy to ebb and flow, but it also helps me to stop all the things that are going to be possibly emotionally crippling to me, because that can happen to empaths a lot of times, of like just feeling, the emotion becoming so heavy. So
Right.
That's one of the things I just want to talk about real quick.
Okay, yeah, I get that as well, because I did the boundary thing. Like I had steel walls with concrete and barbed wire, and it was not good. It was harder taking that down than it was putting it up. So yeah, if you can avoid that, go see Jennifer and learn how to work with that so that you don't have to do that and shut yourself off from everybody else.
Yes.
Do you have some stories, maybe with some clients or something that you'd like to share?
Sure. So I think we talked about it earlier about, people always kind of wanting to share with you. And so I had that kind of going on, my whole life. And then you had talked about feeling things that your family feels from far away. I definitely have had those as well. And so, but I think one of the things in recent years that ended up happening, which made me go, whoa. I mean, I'm constantly surprised when I give. Like, it's always shocking me. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And, and that's really fun. And so I was talking to a girl who actually was one of my dance students at one time. So I think that this maybe presented itself at the time because I already had somewhat of a connection with her. And now I'm finding that I can do it with people that I just met, which is really awesome. But one of the ways that my gift evolved was that I was not only just feeling what people emotionally were feeling, but I was feeling what they were physically feeling. And so this young lady had told me about this illness she had, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, and she was just miserable. She couldn't eat. She couldn't do all these things. And so we started talking, and, I get these little things where it's like I feel like every hair just stands up, and it feels like chills. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like going off, I need to talk to her. And so we start talking, and after all this time we like talking, I asked her if I could touch her, because that's also one of the things that I do. When I feel someone, like physically feel them, I can often pinpoint where it's coming from. And so I scanned her body, and when I touched her hands, I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Like, I know it's something, it has to be something with your hands, something that you're doing, maybe you're ingesting. We talked all about it. So she was like, I'm going to go to the doctor again. I'm going to tell him, look at my hands. Because we originally thought it was from her vaping. Because when she put her hand to her mouth, I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Tell your doctor. So she goes to the doctor. She messaged me later, and she's like, I said, was it from your vaping? She says, no. And I was so disappointed because I was sure what it was. And she said, no, but I had a fungal infection under my nails. And when I put my hand to my mouth, I ingested it, and it went down in, and that's why I couldn't eat. That's why the medication wasn't working. And we both were just like, wow. Oh my goodness, like, but not with it. Yes. And so when that happened, those things started happening more often than not, where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. I was able to, a friend of mine was sick one day with a stomach ache, and I was like, just relax, sit there, close your eyes. And I was feeling what he was feeling, and then I was literally giving him some of my healing energy. He woke up and was like, what did you just do to me? And I said, I have no idea. But I knew, I just had this feeling I could do it. And these were in the early stages. And so now I'm able to pivot that to where literally someone sits in front of me. I could be with them 2 minutes, and I'm like, oh, is your wrist hurting? I will touch them exactly where it's at. And they're like, yes, that's exactly where it hurts. And I'm often able to tell them why, whether it's, something repetitive movement, or sometimes it's really, or a lot of times the people that sit in front of me, it's emotional energy getting trapped in the body.
Right.
And I help them release those away. Yeah. So there's a lot of crazy little stories like that. I think they're crazy just because I'm constantly amazed at the beauty of connection. And being an empath, I think that's the wonderful part, is that, like, you really do feel the connection between you and everyone else on this earth, and it's beautiful. And all of those negative things we talked about, that's what helps override it, is know that we're all in this together, we're all connected in this way, and that, like, just as much as there's things that can be seen as negative, I mean, there's so much beauty out there and so much love, and getting to experience that and getting to experience love in this, like, really profound and almost concentrated way is one of the things that has really maybe embraced this as a gift, for sure.
Well, this sounds almost like on the border of medical intuitive. So that a little bit.
It's funny because it's like over the years I've had to allow the gift to just, kind of take me where it is. And so that's where I just try to trust. You know what I mean? I try to surrender and trust to that, and not, like earlier when we're saying about, I try not to put too many parameters on myself of what I can or cannot do.
Okay. Well, I need to go ahead and take a quick break right now, and we will be right back, and we'll finish up with your story. Hey, welcome back to Healing at Soul Level. I'm your host, Shawna Williams. So Jennifer has explained so many things about being an empath, the positive, the negatives, the protection, your boundaries. If you want to know more about this, or if you want to get help, we're going to talk to Jennifer about other modalities and practices that she does, and how you can set up a session with her for coaching on your empath. Jennifer? Okay.
Yes. And so I do have a few different things that, like, because when I was a kid, I would dream about the future, and that was always kind of the first thing that kind of started out for me. And so on a personal level, I still have that gift sometimes, and I help people harness that, and so that they can use that a lot, and that's one that anybody can definitely do. But as far as, like, what I find myself doing more often than not, as being an empath, I do a lot of energy cleansing. So if you were to have a session with me, we do it in person, can do it over the phone, can do video chat, whatever you're most comfortable with. I love meeting people in person, but I know not everyone is comfortable with that. But what we do is we will just chat at first. So I will connect with people, and I let them just kind of lead the way. They can tell me as much or as little about anything that they want. And it often the conversation finds itself exactly to be where it needs to be. And we address things that are going on, the most pressing things. and I help them get a little clarity that way. And then we also, I do different things to help them release that energy. So it's almost like a roadblock for people, that they can see where they need to go, but they can't get there. So I help them kind of move that blockage and sweep the road away, and then they get moving on again. So some people, I do a mentorship, and I work with them for extended periods of time. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 sessions. It's whatever someone is comfortable with. But I'm also very honest about how much I do or don't need to spend time with someone. So some people come to me and they want a lot of help, and I'm like, you're ready to go. You just attack it. But I'm always here for people if they need it. For sure.
So how do they get in touch with you?
Okay. You can reach me by going to my website if you'd like, and that also gives more information about myself and what I do, and it's jennifervaldezhealer.com. And so just my first, last name, and healer. Or you can find me on Facebook. I have a Jennifer Valdez Healer Facebook page, so you can message me that way. Or you can is it okay for me to give my phone number?
Oh, yes, whatever you want to give.
Okay. And then, or you can text me, text me or call me at 214-686-4782. And like I said, I'd be happy to work with you any way that I can. And I definitely, a lot of times, and I think this is one of the lovely things about being an empath, is that we literally, I don't know if it's like this for you, Shawna, but it is for me. And I'm not saying that it's not for other intuitives, but everything is very personal, and it's very much tailored to you and what your needs are. So that's one of the beautiful things of knowing, of meeting someone and knowing them. I definitely, it's at your pace. It's at what you need. And also it's not coming from me. It's not coming from Jennifer and my ego. And I'm tapping into you and to your own needs.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank today's guest, Jennifer Valdez, healer, and you can reach her on her website, Jennifer Valdez Healer, for more information, or call her at 214-686-4782. Please tune in next week to hear about DNA Theta healing with my guest, Sherry Kaufman from Radiant Moon Reiki. You've been listening to Healing at Soul Level, and I'm your host, Shawna Williams. Thank you for tuning in. Love and light.
This has been Healing at Soul Level with host Shawna Williams. Listen each week as Shawna will help you discover the different healing modalities and how to use them in your everyday life, right here on Shawna Williams' Healing at Soul Level.